All right, we are live, and thank you everybody for tuning in to the Phys Ed Summit 2016. Thank you for spending your Saturday with us, learning some more about our profession, pushing our profession forward. Thank you so much for your time. And so this session, we have Krista Strayer, and she is going to tell us a little bit about herself and what she will be presenting. So Krista, go ahead and take it away.
Great, thanks Jorge. And apologies everybody for getting on here a little bit late. We were just finishing up with another presentation and had to get all the links working and so forth. So let's get right into it here. And I'm gonna make sure I've got the right presentation going here. So my name is Krista Strayer, and I have been teaching yoga in schools for about 10 years now. Teaching yoga as a phys ed unit and training teachers to use yoga and mindfulness in their classroom. And so what I've found lately is that the biggest difference that I can make for teachers is actually not teaching yoga in the schools, but helping teachers with their own wellness, because kids are so tuned in to what their teacher is like. So let me just grab our presentation up here, and just bear with me for one moment. My apologies, I've got the wrong one coming up. Okay. Okay. Thanks for bearing with all that technical stuff that comes with a presentation. So just to give you a little bit of background in terms of where this all comes from, from teaching yoga in schools, I found that the biggest difference I could make was actually working with the teachers in another capacity. And so you can kind of, as I'm chatting here, you can kind of check out a little bit about me if you like to web surf. I like to web surf when I started in a presentation to find out what they're all about. And so my website is www.flourishschools.com. And from there you can see that there's a lot of resources for teaching yoga in your classrooms and so forth. There's a lot of resources for getting kids training on there. That's part of what I've done is teaching, training other teachers to use yoga, to be yoga kids teachers and to use yoga in their classrooms. And you can see a lot of that stuff on there. But what you can't see on there is that, firstly, I'm a recovering engineer. I spent 10 years working in the oil patch before back problems made working at a desk just kind of intolerable. And the other thing you can't see was that I was really supposed to be a teacher. My dad is a teacher, and I was always going to be a teacher. My dad built me a blackboard when I was little, and I loved to play school. But somehow, as I got old enough to make that the decision for a career, I was in the high school noticing how hard my dad worked and how underappreciated he seemed. And so somehow I made that flip decision not to go into teaching and to go into engineering, which wasn't my passion. It's still a good decision, taught me a lot of great things. But it turned out that from a few injuries, I was just not able to sit at a desk for long periods of time that was required as being an engineer. And so I turned to yoga to get my life back on that. And it kind of gave me the ability to get over some chronic pain. And once you find something like that, you just want to share it. And so I started doing yoga teacher training and started volunteering in my kids' classrooms and totally fell in love with working with kids. And being able to tap into their energy really helped me to stay young and to be able to influence kids at such a young age, to have such a potential to make a big difference. And many of you probably, being teachers, likely feel that same drive, that we want our kids to have, or our students have better opportunities than we did. And so I started teaching yoga in schools and developing a ton of resources for teachers to use yoga in their classrooms, which you can find on that website. But I found that teachers, it was like one more thing you were asking them to do, and they're already overwhelmed and got so much on their plate. And yes, we know that yoga and meditation can be awesome tools for the classroom and for the gym, but when do you really slip that in? How do you have time to do that? And then alongside of this, my business was flourishing. I was teaching all over the place, had all kinds of great opportunities. But and the busier I was getting, my kids were getting older, and the busier they were getting, and you can kind of see where this is going, that I was trying to help everybody else, and I was not looking after my own needs. Kind of that first rule of yoga, I was not doing that. And I was caught in the busy trap, in the serving trap. And so I had to make some decisions. I started looking at Ayurveda and what that could do for me. And Ayurveda is the study of, it's kind of the study, it's kind of like traditional Chinese medicine. It's the study of life and the study of how we live from the ancient Indian perspective. So it's kind of going that one step deeper from yoga. And I'm just going to skip through a few things to get to the juice of this. We have limited time. And so I found out about this thing in Ayurveda called OJAS. And OJAS is essentially the juice or the nectar of life. It's kind of a nice metaphor for when we're feeling depleted, what we're missing. Right? So I like to visualize OJAS as that little bit of honey. In fact, honey is a builder of OJAS. That little bit of dew that you see on the inside of a flower, that's about how much we have. There's not very much of it inside of us, but it's what keeps us from getting sick. And so I realized that my OJAS was run down. I had no deep energy reserves. And so from this study of Ayurveda, which is just simple daily rhythms and so forth, studying this with my coach, I was able to realign my daily habits and the things that this little simple things I do every day to build that OJAS back up so that now I can get up at 5:30 and enjoy a beautiful sunrise. I don't feel tired when I wake up. I don't feel stiff and sore when I wake up anymore. And even better yet, I can indulge in the treat here and there and not feel guilty about it, that I know that overall I'm eating what my body needs. And it's different. What my body needs is different from my husband and my daughters. Not drastically, but everybody's different. So just understanding how we're different really helps to be able to kind of get through that whole food thing where there's so much information out there and so many different perspectives on what we can do. And so I can kind of keep my energy up and not get through those periods where we're crashing and catching every little cold that runs through the classroom. All right. And so when I was studying this is the point where the light kind of finally clicked that this is what teachers really, really need. So in Eastern culture, they have this, or in the Indian culture, they have this philosophy that if you nourish the mother, the child will thrive. In fact, after giving birth, the mother's feet barely touch the ground for a month. She has support that comes into the house to look after her, and so that she can recover from that prospect of growing and delivering a baby. And guess what? When you look after the mother like that, the baby thrives. And so we have it in reverse in our society. We focus all of our attention on the child, and we're depleting ourselves as teachers and as parents. And more, the kids are not better off because we're not, right? So if we can look after our needs, then the kids are going to be just fine. And so what I found is that teachers basically need more OJAS, right? And so that's where I am focusing my attention right now, is how can I support teachers in their schools? And it ends up totally fitting for me because the circle is coming around again. I always felt that I was meant to be a teacher, but didn't because of my dad's overwhelm. And now I get the chance to support teachers and the amazing work that you guys all do from the back door and helping you with your overwhelm. So Flourish Schools and Flourish Families is there to support the adults and the teachers, the parents, and the administrators to create that whole circle for a school to flourish. Okay, so we are living in this era of I'm too busy. We end up being too busy to feel things, too busy to reflect on what we feel, and so we push it all away. And there's so many people out there that are depending on us as a teacher and as a parent, likely a lot of your parents as well. You have that dual role of serving. And we don't have time to look after our own needs. And so we end up depleting our reserves as we're serving others. We feel overwhelmed, and there's so much to do all of the time. Every time you look around, you have this thought that every time you look around, there's something that needs to be done. And so how do you shut that off without having to go on like a permanent vacation? And sometimes we feel tired, bone deep tired some days. And there's so much to do each day that if we don't wind down properly, when we get to bed, it's either really late and we crash, or we get there and we can't turn the voices off. And all of this fuels that busy trap because it ends up taking us longer to do things because our mind is not focused and clear and our bodies are tired. So we feel unnourished by our food because of all the advice and the mistrust in our food sources. And even when we eat healthy things, our minds won't let the food truly nourish us. And then there's the unhealthy things that we reach for to fill a gap, right? A need. So I'm tired, so I eat, or I'm sad, so I eat. Do you guys ever have that voice inside at mid-afternoon that says, I need chocolate or I need a cookie? And do you really? Like you just had lunch. But we were looking for something. Right? We might be looking for companionship, especially as teachers. I find you looking for just an adult conversation every once in a while. But we're not truly listening to what we really need, and we're fueling a cycle of overeating and further unhappiness from that. And sometimes we think it's honorable to be so busy and not take the time for our own needs. But at the end of the day, we're not really serving anybody. And we lose out of that joy of the moment, and we're not able to be fully present for that joy that's present in our lives. I just want to repeat that. We're not able to be fully present for the joy in our lives. So I want you just to take a moment to reflect. And if you have printed out the handouts, there's a little link there on the side of your tassel about the handouts for our workshop today. If you had a chance to do that while you're waiting, we're going to go into that and fill that out. If you don't, that's totally fine. If you have a blank piece of paper beside you, go ahead and grab that. But we're just going to reflect. So I want you to close your eyes and practice feeling inside about what is your energy like right now. Just sense, what is that level of reserve that you have? And hopefully, if you're just coming off summer vacation and summer holidays, that your energy level is actually pretty high right now. But sense into what it's like right now and what it feels like when you get to Halloween and Christmas time. And just notice, what do your muscles feel like right now? Can you sense into what your bones feel like? What does your head, your brain feel like? Is it fuzzy or clear? And what does your belly feel like? How nourished do you feel by your food? And so just sense into that. How deep is the well in your serving body? And then I want you just to jot down on a piece of paper because this makes it become real. If you don't have that hand, you just kind of like reinforce it really into your thought patterns right now. But I am the person who feels like, just jot down 3 things. What are you feeling? And then what does this cost us? What does it cost us in terms of your health? You want this body to support you so you can enjoy retirement, right? And that needs to start right now, not when we get to retirement. What does this cost you in terms of medical expenses? Prescriptions that mask what's really going on inside. Or the massages, that's my crutch sometimes, is the massage that I need because I didn't really take the time to look after myself. And there's nothing wrong with getting massage. Absolutely, it's integral, but it's nice to go because it's an indulgence, not because you need it to survive or to move. What does this cost you in terms of family time? Are you truly able to enjoy the time that you spend with your own family? Or are you too tired at the end of the day to cherish those precious moments? Are you feeling irritable and you push others away? This is actually what we call a sign of Vata imbalance, where you feel rough and cold and alone instead of sticky and warm and close. It's hard to be nourished by others when we're pushing them away. Is your brain fuzzy? Are you making the best decisions? Are you functioning at your peak? And not likely if you're feeling sleep deprived or just feeling deprived in general. And what does that cost you financially? Besides just the medical expenses, the therapist bills, what about your career? And are you truly able to take on the challenge and feel good about what you do and be compensated for that? And just the aspect of spending money that you don't need to. Again, when we fill that void, some of us eat, some of us shop, and some of us do both, right? So do you spend money needlessly that you're filling a void that needs to be filled by something else? And what does feeling like this malaise or this discomfort or this feeling of not right, what is that really costing you and your family? And is there an option to that? And there is a way through this. There is a way to realign ourselves to a natural rhythm and feel supported and nourished. It's not hard. It may require support and commitment, but the rewards are super, super sweet. And a big part of the solution is just being aware, right? Understanding our natural inclinations and the cues that our body gives us and listening inside again. When was the last time you listened to your muscles and you listened to your bones? And that's really what Ayurveda is. It's a listening and understanding of deep inside. So I want you to sense into that right now. Let's go from that where we are right now, let's just sense into the future and what that possibility could be. So I want you to sit up tall, take a deep breath in, and just let it out slowly. And with each breath in, you are building your energy reserves up. So take a couple deep, slow breaths in, and nice, long, deep, complete breaths out. And as you're breathing in and breathing out, just imagine that you can see the well inside of you being filled up again. And I want you to feel deeply nourished, coming from deep, deep inside of you. I want you to feel supported all around you. Just relax your shoulders, lean back even, as if you've got somebody there that's holding you. And feel that energy deep within, and then project that into the future. And how different would that look like for you? How do you want to feel in your body? And let's put some specifics on this. Do you want to feel energized for the day and up for anything? Do you want to feel like you can keep up with your kids and your students? Do you want to feel nourished by your food? Do you want to feel lighter, energized, alive? Do you want to feel wise and grounded and even tempered? Do you want to feel balanced? Do you want just better clarity of thought, being able to make better decisions? So take a moment, and what do you want to feel like? If you have that worksheet handy or just a piece of paper, now write that in. So in contrast to how you feel, how do you want to feel? I want to be the person who feels like what? And I'm curious about what you sensed in these two exercises. What is the growing edge that you are facing? Do you want to feel different between where you are now and where you want to be? And so I'd invite you now to share in your chat box about what that difference is. Is there a big gap? You just put in your chat box how you want to feel. And Colin, if you're there on the line, I can't see the chat box when I'm doing this because I get feedback through. If you're there on the line, if you can read any of those comments out if there's coming in, feel free to do that.
One comment says, I work out every morning and consider myself in great shape, but always find myself tired around 12-ish.
Good. Okay, so that one there, that's a really good question, and one that we can go into. That one's going to take some personal knowledge as to kind of troubleshoot as to where that is. And so I will invite you guys to think about the way we can do this easiest. Often I will offer like a free strategy session for you guys to kind of come on and have a one-on-one topic. So that one there is a really good one for us to dive into, and I'll need to know a little bit more specifics. I mentioned the word Vata earlier. In Ayurveda, we have kind of different personality types. There's a Vata and a Pitta and a Kapha. And when you work out in the day can be really key as to what your personality type needs and the type of workout that you do and how you're varying it. So there's a bunch of different things in there and how you're fueling your body. So that's a really good question and kind of loaded in. Some of the tips and tools we're going to go into are going to help to kind of give you some answers for that. But feel free to type back in that if that's going to help or not, because that's one that I'm going to need to know a little bit more about you personally to give you the right answer on that, because we're also different as individuals.
Another comment is, I want to feel strong and healthy.
Good, I like that.
I'd like to feel full of energy. I want to feel calmer.
Great. So as each of those are written off, I want you guys just to feel that sense of calm and that sense of strength within you, and kind of share that around the group. There's an amazing thing that happens when we're on a group experience like this, and you get to kind of tap into everybody's energy, and our own energy kind of exponentially grows. So just kind of connect with that. Okay, so let's look at some ways to start feeling calmer and more energy that's going to stay with us throughout the whole day. So we don't have those kind of surges or where we get energized and then we kind of crash later on. We want to be able to even that out a little bit. And just a way to build up that feeling, that energy reserves inside of us. And to get out of that busyness trap, right? So we get out of that feeling of depleted. And the way to do that is just to simply dial it back and attune ourselves to the natural rhythm of life so that you can feel more connected and more well-rested and more nourished, and a deep nourishment that's going to last you all day. We want to feel nourished by both our food and by our own self-care practices. Now, anytime you try to do something new or make a big shift, our brain is going to kind of kick in. Our brain does not like change. As humans, we are attuned, or we are like deep within us, we don't want change. We're just kind of programmed to stay with the status quo and to stay with the group. And this kind of is right in that base brain, or the reptile brain that we have going on there, our instinct brain. And so we want to trick it into allowing it to let us make change. So often you may have that New Year's resolution that you're going to all of a sudden start going to the gym every day, or you're going to add in this new habit. And often we kind of fall out of that really quickly, that our brain kind of gives us lots of resistance, lots of reasons why not to do that. And so the way around that is to trick it through tiny little shifts. So nothing too radically, and just slow, steady progress. So we make little slow steps. Our brain, that instinct reaction that pulls back, is not going to click in. And then when we make these little slow steps, we get to feel that feeling of accomplishment because they're going to make our steps so easy you can't say no. And so when you feel that feeling of accomplishment, it gives you that adrenaline rush, which is actually going to fuel further success and fuel further growth along your path. So the other thing that our brain is wired to do is to be part of a group and not stand out, right? As humans, that's just human nature, right? So we're going to create our own group of people that are doing the same thing. So you can kind of sense into everybody on the call that's doing this and everybody that is kind of going through the same process. And even if you are listening to this call afterwards or to the recording, it still works, right? You still get to that support because there's other people now on the same path and doing the same thing. So just sense into that. It might seem a little bit airy-fairy as you first start to do that, but it does really work. You get that power of collective thought. And so we want to go from A to B. We want to go from where you are now and how we felt at the beginning, that first check-in we did, to where we want to be. There's a couple of basic areas to focus on. And when I work with people and take them through courses, we typically go through 10 different habits in 10 weeks. But today we're going to start with 2 and maybe 3 if we get there with time. And these are 3 of the most key areas that I find make the biggest difference in terms of turning this around and getting us back on track and feeling energized and supported. And it's okay that some of you may have already gone through this before with me. And I still do it each time myself because you just keep going deeper and deeper on your own growth curve. It's those small little shifts that add up to exponential growth. So each time you do this, you're just going to go one step further. And that each of those steps is just going to add up to a whole new growth period along the way. Okay, so simple habit number 1 is just getting to bed by 10 o'clock. So we're going to start at the end of the day. Because once you're on track with this, you're going to have more energy to tackle every other area. So if you have that worksheet handy there at the very top, you can write down before you kind of go into this, what time do you actually go to bed right now? And what time do you go up? Good. What time do you get up? Or if you have a piece of paper, just jot that down. And you might be a rock star on this one in terms of the timing when you go to sleep. I find a lot of teachers, they have this already dialed in pretty good because you typically have to get up pretty early to get to school on time to be there to prep for when the kids come. I find teachers are one of the groups that I work with that really have this in. But I want you to also take note of how well rested that you feel and how would you rate the quality of your sleep. So on a scale of 1 through 10, what does that look like for you? And so part of this sleep equation is the math. How many hours of sleep do you get? And the other part is the rhythm. Which hours do you get? And so you may have heard that expression that an hour of sleep before midnight is worth 2 hours after midnight. And I've heard that lots of times before, but for me, nothing works for me unless I know the why. And so the why behind this, I finally learned that why when I started looking into this Ayurveda, the science of life. And this whole Ayurvedic daily rhythm, this whole clock is a whole workshop in and of itself. So we'll do that at another time. But basically the hours between 10 and 2, both at midday and at night, is our time for digestion. And so during the day, it's when we most optimally digest food, but at night is when we most optimally digest thoughts and ideas and everything that we took in through the day. And so if you're not in bed before midnight, you're missing out on half of their key processing time, and your sleep is not going to be nearly as restful as it could be or as it really should be. And so to start off, and this is a hard time too if you're just coming off summer holidays, and depending on where you live in the world, where I live, it doesn't get dark until like 11 o'clock at night in the summertime. And so it's hard to get to bed before 10 o'clock. And so it's a really hard one to get tuned back into. And you can kind of take some leeway with the seasons, but look at when you currently go to bed. If it's already at 10 o'clock, great. We're going to get back to you in a minute. If it's after 10 o'clock, we're going to look at slowly migrating it back to 10, to that point. So, and I know there's a lot of reasons, AKA excuses, why you can't, and we call this resistance. Resistance is good. It shows us that we're actually on the right path. So the more reasons you think of not to go on this is the harder you need to work at this one. And so all I would ask of you in this next week is to go to bed 15 minutes earlier. And if that seems overwhelming, go to bed 5 minutes earlier. And when that gets easy, you just keep adding in another 5 minutes and 5 minutes and maybe 15 minutes until you can get it back to 10 o'clock. And now for the optimizing. If you are already in bed early, but you're not waking refreshed, this is where your optimizing point comes in. This is also the how-to for any of those of you who are changing this bedtime habit. Because if you just go to bed earlier, you might lie in bed awake and it's still not going to serve you. It's going to be more frustrating because you're lying in bed awake. And so if you're already in bed at 10, this is going to help you get a deeper sleep. Or if not, this is going to help to calm the mind and the brain and help to calm the whole nervous system so that you're ready to go to sleep. It's kind of tuning your body in. Because going to sleep is not an instant on-off switch, right? Because we live in a super stimulating world. We have to be able to tune that out. So we're going to prep your body with some basic nourishing things. First step is just to go to your room, go to your bedroom earlier, just to start that wind down process. And if you follow, there's a little follow-up link on your Tazo page there. And if you sign up for that, I'll send you a few links after our call with some more information and resources on this. But some ideas of what to do is to do a few quieting yoga poses. So you can think yin yoga or just restorative yoga, like the girl in that picture there. You'll simply lie on your back with your legs up the wall. It's a super relaxing thing to do. You can use some essential oils. So either have them in a diffuser or rub some into the bottoms of your feet. So things that are calming as lavender oil, cedarwood, or frankincense oil. So if you rub them into the bottom of your feet, that just helps to kind of get them through your bloodstream and helps to get you into that relaxed mode. Or if you don't have a diffuser, you can just put a couple drops on your pillow. So you're going to inhale that scent as you go to sleep, and it will help for that. And they work for adults and for kids. They even work for dogs. So when we had our puppy, he kept waking up in the middle of the night. So I started putting lavender essential oil in my diffuser so that I would sleep better because I was getting woken up quite a bit. And I found that he would sleep through the night if I put that in there. So it's kind of a key for that one. Another good one is to not read on the lit screen, or don't be looking at a computer or a TV screen optimally anywhere after 8 o'clock, right, to help to kind of get you into that wind down mode. If you have a black background option on your e-reader, that's great if you like to read before you go to bed, or read an actual book instead. That really does make a difference. But basically just taking some me time. And I know if you have small kids, this is hard to do because they likely just got to bed and you have a big list of things to do. But if you actually do go to bed, tomorrow you are going to be far more productive and you can think clearer, and it just sets you up on a more sustainable path. And even I have older kids and they don't actually get home from their sports activities until after 9:30 at night. And so I've had to really set aside this time and delegate it actually to my husband. So he's in charge of the late nights. And what I found is that even though I'm doing this for me, the kids come in and they'll wish me good night and they'll see me in my PJs getting all relaxed and see what I'm doing is actually leading by example. So they sense into that feeling of my wind down, and the whole house ends up getting quieter. Everyone goes to bed earlier. So if you have your worksheet handy or just a piece of paper, I want you to write down what time you are going to commit to going to bed. So it might be your usual time if it's already by 10, or adding in that a little bit early. What's your lights out time? And remember, only go a maximum of 15 minutes earlier. Don't go more than that because we want to take really small steps so that resistance is not going to kick in. And then next, write down one thing that you can commit to for your quiet time. And only one thing this week. So whether it is a relaxing yoga pose you're going to do, a foot massage, journaling is a great thing to do, or meditating, or having an Epsom salt bath. So one thing that you can be consistent on, so say you're going to set a goal to do that, say 3 out of the 5 nights in the work week. And try not to make it not a different thing every night, right? Can just commit to one thing, because this consistency is what helps to actually calm down our nervous system as well, calm down that imbalance, that sensory overload that we have. If we do the same thing at the same time every day, it really helps to kind of calm our nervous system down and help us achieve that, so that we are going to, sleep better and have better energy overall. And I want you to treat yourself like a toddler. So what works for toddlers works for us too. And if you have young kids, you can kind of, or if you've had kids growing up, you can remember that sweet spot of when you got your toddler to bed. If you missed it and you got into that overtired realm, it was like good luck. And we are no different. If we ignore the cue in our body of when we're tired and we don't honor that and don't go to bed and go to sleep, it's so much harder to get into that deep restful stage. So number one this week is I just want you to be aware of when your body feels tired in the evening. It may feel, if you're feeling really depleted, it may feel tired at 8 o'clock. And if you can, go to bed. It's totally fine to go to bed at 8 o'clock. When you wake up in the morning, you will be so refreshed to get everything else done on your work, on your to-do list, much more easily than if you try to force it and then you couldn't get to sleep later. So number one is just to be aware, to sense into when do you naturally want to go to bed. And number two is to create that routine that helps to calm your nervous system. So whatever you do, just try for consistency. And try for 3 or 5 times this week. We don't need perfection. We just want to be going in that right direction. Okay. So simple habit number 2, see if my computer will catch up with me here, is waking up and moving. All right, so we're going to start our day the night before by going to bed early. But when you get up, that morning time is precious time. And it's not because you're hanging on to sleep. We're working on getting that in place already, right, with getting to bed earlier. And when you go to bed earlier, you can start to get up earlier. And so we've carved out time on the other side of the day. And so if you remember, those hours before midnight work better than the hours after midnight. So we're getting double our money back. And optimally, you should rise before the sun. And that kind of averages out about 6 a.m. If you can rise before this time, we enter into that sacred spiritual time of the morning. It's a place for deep thoughts and deep connection. So if you go back to that worksheet or just jot down to what time do you regularly get up. If it's already before 6 o'clock, that's great. Hold on, we're going to get to your optimizing point. If you are later than 6, and ideally this is rising without an alarm clock, so your body naturally waking up on its own, you want to do the same thing as before. I'm going to start backing this one up. So getting up 15 minutes earlier actually might be way too much on this side of the equation. It might be just get up 5 minutes earlier for a few days a week, and then back it up to 10 minutes earlier. And then somehow the morning wake up is kind of harder to move than the going to bed. So just make it really small increments. Make it so easy that you can succeed without stressing about it. So the first step is just getting up a little bit earlier. And when you achieve that, or if you're already an early riser, we're going to use this time to effectively get you moving and feeling more energized all day. And you don't have to go for a 10K run every day. It might be nice in that cool time of the day, especially to have to go for that run. It's often easier to run first thing in the morning than at lunchtime because it gets us overheated and it depletes us more if we do it at lunch. It might be something really simple though, like maybe you do 3 sun salutations. Maybe you do 5 standing poses. Maybe you do 1 standing yoga pose. Maybe you simply get out of bed and do a cat-cow pose or reach for your toes. Or any little stretch that you can do is going to be better than just kind of getting up and feeling sluggish. Maybe taking a morning walk with the dog. Or just even going outside the door and doing a couple little spinal twists. Just start out really super small. And I want you to write down on your worksheet what's one little thing that you can do to wake up. And in the follow-ups, I'm going to send you a little tip sheet with a little 5-minute yoga routine. And if that's of interest to you, you can do a little 5-minute routine. And this all depends on where you're at right now. So every time you do this, it'll be a different growth edge. If you already wake up and move, you might go the next level and add in a meditation practice. So you're just kind of connecting to that spiritual time of day, or some journaling time, or just a quiet meditative oil massage on your hands and feet to energize you this time instead of put you to sleep. And this is a habit that there's going to be a lot of variance within the group. So I want you just to find what level that you're at and what your next growth edge is. And so you can kind of write that down on your sheet. Every time you write something down, it kind of makes it more real. All right, and the third habit, we're just going to touch on this really briefly so we have some time at the end to go into questions if there is any, is habit number 3 is having an earlier, lighter dinner. And I know food can be a huge minefield in terms of what kind of label you have these days, if you're a paleo or a vegetarian or a vegan. And I encourage people just to drop the labels because everybody's different, right? And so we need to really connect to what your body needs and what your body needs, not your emotions, and tap into what you need today and be nourished by that. And so what's serving you one day may not be serving you the next day. What's serving you may not serve the person beside you because you have a different body, right? We need different things. So regardless of what kind of food you eat, one of the biggest shifts that you can make in your wellness journey is just to eat dinner earlier. So if you have your main meal and protein actually at midday, that's your optimal time of digestion. But it's not always possible because, especially as teachers, you have to take your lunch. And so it's a little bit harder to do. Although a lot of times when I'm in the staff rooms with teachers, they are there having a big meal and protein. And so it is possible. Sometimes it's leftovers the night before or something like that. And it's optimal if you can do that because that's when our body is keyed up to digest food. We actually produce more bile between those hours of 10 and 2. In the Western science version of it, that's when we actually produce more bile. We can actually digest our food a little bit easier. But regardless of when you eat, if you can eat your main meal at lunch, and your main protein, especially at lunch, because that's the hardest part to digest. If you can eat a lighter dinner and have it be eating by 6 p.m., that's going to be optimal for your digestive system so that you are able to optimally digest everything and let it go through the digestive process before you go to sleep at night. And then your body is able to process other things and not food when you get to bed at night. So you can process all of the emotions you took in, all of the sensory inputs that you put in, and put all those thoughts in the right place. And so you can just look at what time do you normally eat dinner and start, backing that up by 15 minutes and to get that slowly back to 6 o'clock. And resistance is going to jump in for sure. And I know there's all kinds of reasons why this is really hard. So say your kids have sports and they're not home till late, or you get home and you need to relax before you start prepping, and that all takes time. And this is where the lighter and simpler becomes really, really key. If you can put a soup or a stew in a crock pot before you leave to work in the morning, that's easier. Make it the night before, or set your oven timer so it's ready when you get home, or just have a nice big salad in good weather, so it's easy to put together, or have it all pre-chopped to go together. If your kids go right to sports or they have to get out the door really quickly, I find typically kids are hungry after school, like really, really hungry, ravenous after school. And maybe you are too, as soon as you get home. You can eat. You can eat at 4 o'clock, right? There's no rules about that. So if you cut out having a snack and then having a later dinner and just have your dinner earlier, it's going to be so much better on your body and so much easier for you to get a nice, deep, restful sleep. And in the follow-ups, I'm going to share with you one of my favorite quick evening meals that kind of fits with the whole family called the Glory Bowl or the Buddha Bowl. And it's just super easy to have ready for the kids in a thermos if they go right to sports. Super easy for you to have in a thermos if you're going right to the next activity in the evening. And it's super easy to digest. Anytime that we have our food as cut up as possible or in soups or stews, if you're cooking it together, it's actually easier for our body to digest. So the better we can do at that, the better sleep we're going to get and the more energy we're going to have left over to do the things that we want to do. Okay. So you can just even take a moment just to kind of brainstorm what's one simple meal you can make this week to make it just a little bit easier for yourself. And one of the keys that we work with in the course that I teach is to use a meal planner. Anytime you can plan out your meals ahead of time, it makes those decisions just super easy. And so you're going to reach for healthy things instead of the things that are emotionally satisfying and not satisfying with what our body needs. And even those smallest shifts can make can make a huge impact. So even those tiny little things like getting up 5 minutes earlier, or going to bed 15 minutes earlier, or eating slightly earlier or slightly lighter, they all add up and they kind of ripple forwards and ripple outwards, I guess. And that's those small little ripples that we're actually after. We don't need to have a big, huge change in one day. We want those little small changes that are going to fly under the radar of our brainstem so that we don't stress ourselves out about it. And for me, I was a real night owl. My sleep a couple years ago was likely a 4, but I didn't even realize how bad it was until I actually started getting sleep. So I made the effort doing a group cleanse a couple years ago, and it's nice to do it when you have a cleanse period. You only have to do it for a couple of weeks. You know that it's easier to put habits in change if you don't have to think it's forever. But just trying to go to bed a little bit earlier and having that 9:30 wind down was key for me, so that I had 30 minutes to transition into going to sleep. And before that, I was on the computer until 10, maybe in bed by 11 or 12, and then not sleeping till well after midnight because I was, using that time to read, or what I considered my time. And so now my wind down consists of, rubbing oil on my feet or having a bath, doing a yoga pose, maybe reading a couple pages, and then I slip right to sleep. And I can wake up at 5:30 and have a way more productive day and just feel so much more in control of my day and so much more productive. So just those simple, tiny shifts can make a huge, big difference. All right. And so these daily habits, these really small, simple things, can really help you feel just more. They can really help you with those stress levels so that you don't have to get sick and catch every little cold that comes around. They can help you just keep your energy consistent throughout the day. If you don't sleep well and you want to wake feeling refreshed, these little keys that we've talked about are going to really help with that. One of the teachers that I worked with, she just started, she picked one little thing, that's what I'm going to have you guys do, and she went from, say, a 4 within a month, actually. She was up to rating her sleep as a 7 instead of a 4. So a huge, big difference in a month by just dialing her sleep back by 15 minutes and getting to bed a little bit earlier. And if you're confused about what you want to eat and what foods you want to nourish you, just looking into some of these simple habits will really help you with that. Okay, so we went through a lot of stuff here today. There's a lot of information jam-packed in here. Normally, I spread this out over a 10-week period, and I've kind of picked and choose the highlights for you, but I wanted to get you the key things that are going to make a big difference. But I don't recommend that you actually incorporate all things at once. So I want you to just listen to that voice inside of you, that wise voice inside, and what's the easiest habit shift that you can do this week? Which one resonates with you? So you can kind of close your eyes and tune in, or you just have an instinct as to which one is going to be the easiest and most doable thing that you can do. And I want you to circle it or put a big star around it, or just mark it down on your sheet, or put that goal on a sticky note, whatever that is, it's going to help you. Especially writing it down, because something about putting pen to paper that's going to make it real. Or actually put it into your chat box. What is the thing that you are going to commit to do this week to help your energy? And once you write it down there, it kind of keeps you and holds you accountable to the group. And it's not rocket science. But you also likely know that it's hard to change a habit. And so for me, it always takes understanding the why behind it before I can make it. I need to understand the science. But that comes from my foray into being an engineer for a few years, or a decade or so. But it also takes some support and accountability. And so you need to look around you as to who can be your support group for doing this, because peer pressure is an amazing tool. There's a magic to stating something out loud to people that mean something in your life, or people that are in our group with you. And there's a magic to putting all those pieces together. It takes a real willingness to commit, a willingness to stumble a few times. That's okay. That's natural. So feel free to, every time you kind of fall back, just know that that's okay. That's a part of the process. And if you really, really want to go further on this, if you want a few cues and ideas for that, if you go to this website, this link that's on here, the Nourish the Teacher, I have a ton of resources on helping you to sleep better, on different yoga routines and meditations that you can do to support your energy, on all different kind of little tips and tools that you can do, a 1-minute meditation throughout the day, or just different things you can do as a teacher during your day. And if you want to have that one-on-one conversation, there's a link there as well to do that. On the website, you can schedule a 20-minute call, and we'll just go through some of the things that you were working on. Because it's hard to have that interactive chat when we only have a chat box and then not that ability to talk in person with that. And if you're super, super keen and you don't have the support group that's around you, you can look at a support group that I have where we work through a 10-week program. The early bird list is up for that, and we'll be starting registration here in the middle of September for our next course going through that. And that's just for those that really, really want to dial this in and want that support to make these changes really, really fast and to make huge gains in terms of what their energy reserves are. All right, is there any last questions there, Jorge, that we can take before we close off for the day?
No questions, but a lot of really good information. Definitely, I think one of the things that I need to do is go to sleep by 10. I think that's huge, and I definitely notice a difference in the way I behave the next morning, the next day, when I do go to sleep on time. So that's definitely a really, really awesome tip.
Good. And that's one that we often call a keystone habit, right? That one that sets your whole day up for success would be that, that key, that one thing that you do every day that just helps the whole day flow easier. That's a great one to use for that.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of really great information. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing all that information with us. And I want to remind everybody to fill out the survey, and that's the way you can get your PD certificate as well. So if you go to physedigogy.com /phys summit, you can fill out that survey, and we'd love to hear from you and how the session went. So Krista, thank you so much for coming on, and I hope everybody has a great night.
Thanks.
Thank you.